Boy mocked the old janitor for his flag obsession, then saw what was hidden under his sleeve. It started with laughter, the kind that cuts deeper than anyone realizes. Every morning, before the first bell rang, an old janitor walked across the courtyard to fix the same torn American flag. To most students, he was just a stubborn old man chasing a memory that didn't matter anymore. But that morning, when a storm rolled across the Kansas plains, one boy decided to film him, to prove how ridiculous it all was. He never expected what he'd capture next, because when the flagpole snapped and the man ran into the thunder, the truth came out, written in scars, not words. And from that moment on, no one at that school ever looked at the flag or the man the same way again. The Kansas dawn drifted in like a quiet hymn. Wheat fields shimmered under a pale gold veil. Church bells murmured somewhere beyond town. The red brick high school stood still and proud. A frayed flag tugged at its rope, stubborn and alive. Mr. Jack Lawson stepped into the morning chill. 72, back bowed, boots slow but firm. His hands were rough, steady from a lifetime. He set his toolbox by the concrete base. The wind lifted the stripes like a breathing chest. He threaded a needle with practiced care. Tiny stitches bridged the tired seams. He pressed the cloth against his heart. Silence held the space like a chapel. He worked as if memory could be mended. The halyard clicked softly against the pole. Metal talked in a language of service. Lawson tightened a knot, then another. Each pull was a promise to the foreman. Each breath honored names no one heard. Inside, the hallways gleamed from last night's wax. A broom leaned like a rifle at rest. The clock over the gym barely ticked. Fluorescent lights hummed like distant insects. The school yawned, not yet awake. He looked up at the patient, faded blues. Stars wore the years like gentle dust. Stripes held shadows of rain and sun. He saluted, hands sharp despite the ache. Still standing, he whispered to the sky. Faces flickered in his mind's wide screen. Boys once loud under a foreign sun. Laughter swallowed by smoke and orders. Letters home that never found reply. He blinked, and the plaza returned. The flag rose, catching a stronger breeze. Cloth snapped like drums at a parade. Colors brightened against a widening light. Lawson's shoulders eased just a touch. The wind carried something like prayer. A pickup growled 3 streets away. A dog barked, then thought better of it. The town shifted under its denim sky. Morning gathered its ordinary courage. Lawson gathered his tools and steadied himself. He lingered for one last, grateful look. The pole hummed with weather and years. Honor felt simple, not loud at all. He turned toward the maintenance shed door. Peace followed, quiet as his steps. The first bus sighed to a stop at the curb. Doors folded open like a yawn. Sneakers scattered across painted lines. Cold air met coffee and chatter. The school finally remembered its noise. Jake Turner framed the morning with his phone. Second-floor glass held his reflection thin. Old Glory's babysitter, he said, amused. Thumb hovered, hunting viral oxygen. He pinched to zoom on Lawson below. A few seniors leaned into the joke. Someone saluted with a smirk. Another whistled the anthem off-key. Cruelty felt brave in a crowded room. Laughs stacked like chairs on chairs. Emma Blake stood a little apart, arms crossed, unsure what to say. Her gaze followed Lawson's steady hands. No flinch, no hurry, no need to explain. Something about that patience unsettled her. Outside, the wind freshened with purpose. Lawson checked the not one last time. He squared his shoulders and saluted. Respect. Offered without any audience. Phones upstairs turned it into sport. Jake caught the angle he wanted. Caption drafted itself in his mind. History refusing to retire, he typed. Thumb tapped, send like a small victory. Laughter spiked, then rolled away. The bell chirped the day into motion. Lockers clanged in metallic chorus. A teacher's voice tried to herd time. Footsteps drummed down pale corridors. The video began its quiet climb. Emma's stomach tightened and held. She looked again through the glass. Lawson moved toward the shed alone. Back straight, pace even, dignity intact. The flag breathed behind him, unbothered. In the classroom, jokes kept orbiting. Their heat cooled faster than expected. Emma opened her notebook, then paused. A line of doubt crossed the page. Silence said what she wouldn't yet. Jake checked his screen for reactions. A handful of likes, a laughing face. He grinned, feeling briefly taller. Clouds thickened beyond the parking lot. Wind wrote warnings on the asphalt. Down below, Lawson never looked up. The moment didn't need an answer. He pushed the door with his shoulder. Hinges gave a polite, tired sigh. The morning closed behind him, calm. Morning spread over the town like folded linen. Diners clicked on their neon coffee signs. Pickup trucks rolled past the courthouse lawn. A bronze soldier kept watch without complaint. Flags and windows hung a little sun-faded. On Main Street, the barber swept hair rings. A bell over the hardware door chimed twice. Mothers compared coupons near the register. An old hymn leaked from a radio's static. Life kept steady time, boots on floorboards. By the memorial, names carved in granite. Rain had traced the letters in darker lines. Pigeons nested under the courthouse eaves. People passed, eyes fixed on errands. Gratitude waited patient as the stone. Church doors stood open to the breeze. A banner announced the Friday potluck. A child practiced the pledge on the steps. His hand hovered, not yet sure of height. His mother gently lifted his elbow. At the school, the bell was still stubborn. Always smelled of lemon and wax. Locker doors reflected fluorescent clouds. Lawson's steps left no sound at all. He moved like a habit the building kept. Students flowed around him in warm tides. Backpacks bumped, laughter skipped ahead. A stray "sir" drifted from a freshman mouth. He nodded once, accepting the small salute, then vanished into the hum of passing years. He fixed what broke and what might break. A hinge that squealed, a faucet that wept, a window that rattled its cold complaint. Small repairs, almost impossible to notice, except by those who trusted quiet hands. In the gym, banners told old victories. The fabric remembered cheers and dust. He traced a fraying edge with his thumb, then tucked the thread back into place. Winning isn't loud when it lasts. Outside, the flag spoke in patient breaths. Inside, the day gathered tests and bells. Respect hung in the air like wood smoke, thin, familiar, easy to miss if rushed. Still there for anyone willing to pause. The town carried both pride and forgetting. A split seam no one meant to ignore. Lawson felt its tug with each slow step. He kept the stitch line straight as he could, and prayed the cloth would hold a little longer. Principal Collins watched the hall from glass. Papers stacked like small decisions on oak. A weather alert blinked on his desktop corner. He rubbed the bridge of his nose once, then buzzed the intercom for M.R. Lawson. Lawson entered with his cap in hand. Dust flecked his sleeves like pale chalk. He stood easy, feet set shoulder-width. Collins gestured to the chair. Careful tone. "Jack, let's talk flag duty for a moment." He spoke of safety, liability, the video. "Kids can be cruel," he offered, uneasy. "Maybe take it easy for a while. Let a teacher handle mornings instead. It's not worth the trouble out there." Silence held the office like a held breath. The wall clock clicked a single step. Lawson's eyes measured a long road home. He folded the cap once along the brim. "If it's not worth the trouble, it's not the flag." Collins shifted, words losing their footing. He glanced toward the window and back. "Storm's coming," he said, softer now. "Forecast looks rough for tomorrow. Please just think about it, all right?" Lawson nodded, neither yes nor no. He rose with the care of a loaded memory. Chair legs whispered against the floor. His hand found the doorknob by feel. "Trouble's what taught me respect," he said. In the hallway the lights hummed steady. A poster on Service Week curled at the edge. He smoothed it flat with a quiet palm. Then checked the exit door for drag. Little things fail before big things do. Outside, the sky wore a darker coat. The flag shifted as if listening for rain. Wind rehearsed in the bare cottonwoods. Clouds gathered like men around a map. The afternoon learned the taste of metal. Collins stood alone in the office light. He replayed the video in his mind's eye, not the mocking, just the steady salute. He closed the laptop with a careful click, and hoped morning would arrive gently. Lawson wheeled his cart toward the shed. A socket wrench rang inside like a bell. He counted bolts, washers, contingencies, old training lined up in quiet rows. Storms test what practice makes ready. Evening settled over town like an old quilt. Kitchen windows glowed with supper light. Crickets tuned the edges of the fields. Lawson's house breathed a careful quiet. He set his keys in a dish by the door. On a small table lay photographs in rows. Young faces in jungle greens and dust. A folded flag in its wooden triangle case. Dog tags resting like commas in a prayer. A letter addressed to a name now gone. He eased into a chair by the lamplight. Scars along his forearm caught the gold. They were maps of nights he didn't retell. He traced a ridge as if reading scripture. Memory answered with heat and smoke. The room fell away to distant thunder. He heard a shout, then metal ripping open. Sandbag dust rose like a final sunrise. 12 boys behind him held their breath. He turned, stepped forward, and covered fire. After the blast, silence rang like a bell. Someone cried out for a mother's name. A hand squeezed his shoulder and shook. He tasted cordite, ash, and fear held down. The world narrowed to keeping men alive. Back in the chair, he closed both eyes. The lamplight hummed its gentle psalm. He pictured the school's worn flag again. The seam he'd mended at first light, threads holding because he had held. He lifted the triangle case with care. Glass gave back the shape of his face. "Boys, I'll take care of her for you." The promise lived plain in the room. It needed no witness but God. He set the case down, slow and square, then folded his hands the way Marines do. Prayer moved quiet through his ribs. Thank you for breath, for duty, for dawn. Forgive the weight a man can't lay down. Rain started as a shy knock on shingles. The house settled older bones at rest. Distant sirens drifted and faded away. He listened for what the night might keep, found peace waiting at the edge of sleep. Before the lamp clicked, he stood once more, drew the curtain to check the dark street. Somewhere a flag lifted in the wind. He nodded as if receiving orders, then turned the light out, faithful and firm. Morning news spoke in weatherman tones. Radar swept green across the plains. Severe cells likely by first bell, it warned. Clouds stacked like anvils over wheat. Wind combed the fields with a rough hand. At lunch, the seniors drifted outside. Heat rose in waves from painted lines. Jake's grin looked for something to tip. He eyed the base of the flagpole, rust bit. "But a gust could retire him," he said. They loosened bolts with a borrowed wrench. A laugh covered what courage could not. Metal sighed, then held by just enough. A dare left behind for weather to find. Emma watched from the shade, stunned. She stepped forward, then stopped herself. Words tangled with the fear of looks. "Don't," someone said, meaning don't spoil. Her throat tightened around the truth. Quiet felt heavier than speaking. Afternoon dimmed earlier than it should. The flag snapped sharper at each gust. Trees rehearsed the hiss of heavy rain. Lightning stitched white lines far off. Thunder answered like rolling drums. Back at the house, Lawson checked a list. Rope, clamps, wrench, oil, spare eyelets. Old training laid tools in ranked order. He rehearsed the work in his mind's hands. Practice steadies what storms will test. Dusk arrived carrying the smell of tin. Rain came on quick and certain feet. The windows flickered with passing light. He sat, boots on, jacket within reach. Sleep would not take the watch tonight. He rose and parted the living room curtain. Street lights blurred into watery halos. The neighborhood held its breath between strikes. He pictured the pole and the weakened base. The flag's weight felt real on his arm. "You can't fix everything, Jack," she'd said. His late wife's voice crossed the thunder. He smiled, small, at the old argument. "Maybe not," he answered the empty room. "But I can fix what's mine to guard." Near midnight, the wind turned colder. Roof beats measured the march of the storm. He set the alarm for before first light. Hands folded, he bowed his head again. Let her stand, he prayed and waited. Dawn arrived in bruised colors and noise. Rain tapped first, polite and uncertain. Then thunder rolled over the open fields. Lightning stitched white veins across the sky. The air smelled of iron and old prayers. Students ran through puddles, jackets up. Doors clanged, voices tumbled indoors. The flag whipped and strained at its line. Water streamed off its corners like tears. The pole trembled, complaining in gusts. Emma pressed her face to the window glass. Her breath fogged half the view away. Beyond it, Lawson battled the wind alone. His jacket snapped, soaked through and heavy. Still, his hands never left the halyard. Jake leaned near, half thrilled, half unsure. "Is he seriously doing that?" he laughed. But his voice cracked somewhere midward. Others watched, phones frozen in palms. Mockery found no rhythm in the thunder. Principal Collins shouted from the door, "Jack, get inside, it's not safe." Rain drowned his words in silver sheets. Lawson only nodded once without turning, his eyes fixed on the flag's flailing stars. The halyard burned lines into his palms. Wind shoved like a younger man's dare. His heart pounded with both memory and strain. "Hold," he told the pole beneath the roar. Old habits made commands automatic. Lightning flared close, blinding white. The world paused between flash and sound. Then thunder cracked like breaking steel. Emma gasped, clutching the sill. The pole swayed past its balance. Rain blinded everyone watching. Lawson lunged forward, boots slipping. One arm caught the flag's drenched weight. He gritted his teeth and braced the fall. The storm made no distinction of heroes. The pole groaned, gave, and fell. Metal slammed into soaked earth. The flag ripped halfway from its hooks. Lawson hit his knees, fabric in both arms. He bowed, shielding it from the mud. In that moment, time knelt with him. The wind slowed, uncertain, almost respectful. Teachers splashed toward him through the rain. Emma's scream cut through the thunderclap. The flag had not touched the ground. They reached him in seconds that felt like hours. Water ran off faces and sleeves alike. Coach Harris knelt first beside the old man. "Jack, you all right?" he shouted above the storm. Lawson nodded, still cradling the flag close. "Let her breathe," Harris said, steadying him. Lawson loosened his grip a fraction, trembling. The cloth gleamed dark with rain and pride. Emma stood frozen a few yards away. She saw what the others hadn't yet seen. His sleeve had torn in the struggle. Burned scars ran up his arm like rivers of memory. A faded USMC tattoo clung above the wrist. The sight cut through the noise like gospel. The laughter from days before vanished clean. Principal Collins dropped his umbrella. The metal ribs collapsed into the mud. He helped Harris lift Lawson slowly upright. Rain mixed with tears on more than one face. No one spoke the word hero, but everyone felt it. Jake stumbled forward through the puddles. Phone still in hand, recording forgotten. He stared at the scars, the quiet pain. Guilt pressed on his chest like wet cloth. The wind finally seemed tired of its anger. Lawson drew a breath between heartbeats. "Don't let her touch the ground," he said. Harris nodded, voice gone rough. "You've done enough, Sergeant," he answered. Emma caught the word, eyes wide. The storm dimmed as if listening in shame. Thunder retreated toward the horizon line. Lightning flickered only once more in farewell. Rain softened into something close to blessing. Around them respect replaced surprise. Lawson's knees threatened to give again. Two teachers caught him under the arms. He looked toward the flag torn, safe, alive. "Good girl," he whispered through rain. Emma covered her mouth, heart aching. The group moved toward the entrance doors. Water dripped from the flag like holy oil. Students watched from every hallway window. Not one phone lifted to record again. Silence honored what they finally understood. When the doors closed, thunder faded for good. Only the steady patter of rain remained. The hallway smelled of storm and humility. Emma looked back once at the empty pole. For the first time she felt what duty meant. Inside the building, the air was thick with steam. Wet coats dripped onto tiled floors. The scent of rain mixed with floor polish. Lawson sat on a bench near the entrance. The flag lay folded carefully in his lap. He refused the nurse's towel and fuss. "Just a scratch," he murmured, eyes on cloth. Every drop that fell seemed to bless the fabric. Emma stood nearby, uncertain but drawn closer. She saw reverence where others saw routine. Coach Harris crouched to meet his gaze. "You were in Da Nang, weren't you?" he asked. Lawson's jaw flexed, the past grinding loose. A slow nod confirmed what rumor never told. Rain thudded on the roof like distant artillery. Emma felt the room tilt around the truth. Her throat tightened with something new respect. The mocking video played again in her mind. Only now she saw it for what it was, cruelty. The laughter had aged 100 years in a night. Teachers whispered near the doorway. Principal Collins stood apart, hands folded. He had seen the scars, the steadiness, the silence. Something in him cracked under quiet guilt. He looked at the flag like an apology. Lawson blinked against the dim hallway light. Faces blurred, voices soft to hums. He wasn't in the school anymore, but years away. Smoke, mud, and the cry of his brothers returned. Faith was the only thing that still answered. "Don't let her touch the ground," he repeated. No one was sure if he meant the flag or Faith. Emma stepped forward and nodded once. "I won't," she said, voice barely a breath. Lawson's eyes lifted just enough to thank her. Rainlight flickered against the glass doors. The town beyond them blurred in silver streaks. A siren wailed somewhere far and harmless. Students lined the hall in reverent silence. No one dared to fill it with words. Coach Harris gave a gentle signal. "Let's get him home," he told the others. Lawson tried to stand but swayed. 2 hands caught him before he fell. Still his grip never left the folded flag. The doors opened to air, sharp with rain. They stepped outside, carrying both man and symbol. Emma followed a few paces behind. Each drop hit the pavement like punctuation. The storm had broken, but the story had not. The following day dawned clean and pale. Mist curled over the wheat like memory smoke. The flagpole stood crooked, stripped bare. A silence hung that wasn't just weather. Inside, whispers began their slow migration. Principal Collins found Coach Harris at his desk. Between them lay an old service file. The cover bore the Marine emblem in gold. Collins opened it with hesitant hands. "Why didn't he ever tell anyone?" he asked. Harris leaned back, eyes distant. "Some men fight the war once," he said. "Others fight it every morning in quiet ways." He slid a photo across the desk, 12 young Marines. Lawson stood among them, the only one older now. Collins stared at the list of commendations. Silver Star, Purple Heart, 12 lives saved. No public speeches, no headlines, no return parade. Just service folded into daily labor. The principal's throat tightened around remorse. "Students ought to know this," he said softly. Harris nodded. "They will, but not as gossip." He tapped the desk with a calloused finger. "Let them learn what respect really looks like." Outside, the sun broke through the glass. By noon, the story spread through the halls, not as rumor but revelation. Phones filled with the photo of Lawson in uniform. Comments whispered between classes turned solemn. Jake couldn't meet his own reflection in the screen. He walked to the nurse's office at last. Lawson sat there quietly, bandages white as linen. Jake fumbled the words, voice rough. "I'm sorry, sir." "For everything." Lawson gave a tired smile. "Just remember what she stands for." Jake swallowed hard, unable to answer. Something in him shifted shape and weight. He left the room without his phone. The hallway lights hummed a low forgiveness. Outside, clouds drifted like flags at half-mast. That night, the town began to know the truth. Veterans called, churches planned prayers. Neighbors spoke the old man's name with pride. The story no longer belonged to whispers. It had become a lesson sung in rain. In every home, screens glowed with the same face. The quiet janitor, the Marine, the man of dawn. A hero no one had noticed until humility revealed him. And the flag, though torn, stood taller than ever. Kansas held its breath and remembered. By sunrise, the storm had moved on. Mud streaked the sidewalks like dried tears. The flagpole lay broken across the lawn. Yet the air felt cleaner, as if forgiven. Inside, students gathered in uneasy quiet. Screens glowed with new headlines and comments. The viral post was no longer a joke. "God bless that man," one message read. Another, "My grandpa served with him." Jake scrolled slower with each word. Guilt sat heavy across the cafeteria noise. Forks scraped, whispers filled the space between. No one dared to laugh out loud that morning. Emma's article draft blinked on her tablet. She titled it "The Man Who Fixed the Flag." Jake stood outside the nurse's office door. The hallway buzzed faintly with fluorescent hum. His reflection in the window looked younger somehow. He knocked, then waited for the quiet "come in." Lawson looked up from a folded blanket. Bandages wrapped his forearms neat and firm. The old man smiled when he saw the boy. Jake's apology stumbled over rain-thick words. "I didn't mean, I didn't understand," Lawson answered softly. "Most folks don't, son." He nodded toward the folded flag on the chair. "Just remember what she stands for." Jake followed his gaze, eyes burning hot. The cloth looked heavier now than steel. He wiped his face and left without speaking. Word spread faster than the wind that day. Parents called the school with trembling voices. Veterans arrived asking how to help. Coach Harris organized cleanup for the grounds. Collins signed every permission slip himself. Emma's story hit the local paper by noon. The photo showed Lawson beneath the flagpole. One arm raised, sleeve torn, eyes closed in rain. The caption read, "Honor never rusts." By dusk, copies sold out across the county. That night, porch lights glowed like small lanterns. American flags fluttered from porches again. Neighbors spoke Lawson's name between hymns. The town's shame had turned to gratitude. Some debts are paid only by remembrance. The next day began with the sound of hammers. Veterans in uniform measured the front lawn. Students carried lumber and bolts in boxes. Collins directed traffic with a clipboard and smile. Emma photographed everything for the paper. Rain had rinsed the sky a bright, forgiving blue. Puddles mirrored flags draped over shoulders. A truck backed and carrying a new steel pole. Its silver gleam caught every ray of sunlight. Applause rose as the men set it upright. Jake stood among the helpers, head bare. He wiped sweat with the back of his hand. "Need a level over here," Harris called. Jake hurried, steadier than he'd ever been. Forgiveness builds better than regret. Church bells began to ring from town square. Mothers and children filled the fence line. Veterans saluted as the foundation dried. Collins shook every hand that reached for his. The school had found its heart again. Emma climbed the steps for one last photo. Lawson's window curtain moved faintly inside. She smiled, knowing he was watching quietly. In her notebook, she wrote, "He never asked for credit. Some stories earn silence more than applause." By evening, the work was finished. The new pole stood taller than the roof. Flags on sleeves and patches caught the light. The breeze lifted hair and memory alike. It smelled of metal, earth, and redemption. A rainbow curved above the distant fields. Children pointed and waved at the color. Older men removed their caps in reflex. The world had learned a small, proud humility. For once, no one hurried to be anywhere else. Emma uploaded her article to the county site. Title bold, "The Man Who Fixed the Flag." Below it, a single sentence closed the page. "Some heroes repair what others forget." It spread faster than any storm could travel. As dusk fell, church bells rang again. Candles glowed near the new pole's base. People sang "God Bless America" under the crosswind. Lawson listened from his porch, hand to heart. Peace returned in the sound of unity. When the last verse faded into night, Lawson looked up at the sky's clean stretch. The stars above Kansas seemed freshly sown. He whispered a thank you to the ones long gone, and let the quiet finish his prayer. Morning came soft, cool, and golden. Mist lingered low across the playground field. Cars lined the curb in solemn rows. Veterans, parents, and students gathered together. Even the wind seemed to wait its turn. The new flagpole gleamed silver in the light. Its base was wrapped with flowers and notes. A hush fell as Lawson's truck pulled in slow. He stepped out carefully, cane in hand. Every eye followed the quiet rhythm of his walk. Collins met him halfway with a firm nod. "Morning, Jack," he said, voice thick with pride. Lawson returned the nod, eyes shining soft. He looked at the pole, tall against the sky. "You fixed her up good," he said simply. Emma and Jake stood holding the folded flag. The fabric glowed like sunrise in their arms. When they approached, Lawson smiled faintly. "Together now," he said, steady and clear. Hands young and old met along the cloth. The anthem began low, a single trumpet note. Wind tugged gently, lifting the stripes. Jake's jaw trembled. Emma's eyes filled. Lawson guided the halyard through the ring. "Slow and steady," he whispered. Like respect, the flag climbed, rippling free in the light. Applause started, soft, then rolled through the crowd. Veterans saluted. Children mimicked their form. Collins bowed his head. Harris stood at attention. Lawson's shoulders squared one last time. When the song ended, no one spoke. Only the flag's voice filled the silence. The sound was both memory and promise. Tears caught sunlight, turning bright as stars. Kansas had found its morning again. Lawson lowered his hand from the salute. "Thank you," he said to no one in particular. But the words reached everyone there. Emma took his arm, guiding him to a seat. The moment settled like a blessing on all. For the first time, laughter felt holy. Not mocking, but shared in warmth. Students clapped Jake on the back gently. Veterans nodded to one another with pride. A flag, once torn, now stitched the town together. After the crowd dispersed, the schoolyard stayed quiet. The flag still waved against the broad blue. Lawson sat on a bench beneath its shadow. The wind cooled his skin, light on the scars. Emma approached, a notebook in her hands. She hesitated, unsure how to begin. "You all right, mister?" "Lawson?" she asked. He smiled, eyes never leaving the sky. "Better than I've been in years," he said. "Sometimes storms wash things clean." Jake joined them, cap in his fingers. He looked at the flag, then the old Marine. "Sir, we're starting a new thing," he said. "We're calling it Lawson Duty, Flag Care." Lawson chuckled softly. "Good name." He leaned his cane against the bench arm. "The trick is simple," he told them. "Raise her proud, lower her gentle, and never do either without meaning it." Both students nodded like recruits receiving orders. Behind them, other kids lined up to sign. A clipboard passed from hand to hand. Names filled the sheet under the title Flag Team. Emma smiled as she watched it grow. Tradition had found its next generation. The afternoon light touched the red bricks warm. Shadows stretched across the trimmed grass. Lawson traced one with his cane's tip. "Guess I can rest a bit now," he said. "You've got it from here." Emma looked at him, eyes bright. "We'll keep it safe, Mr. Lawson." He nodded once, satisfied. "That's all I ever wanted," he said. The wind answered with a soft rustle above. From the window, Collins watched the exchange. He turned off the office lights and smiled. The school felt more like a home today. Harris stood beside him, hat in hand. "Guess the flag's got new guards," he said. Lawson rose slow, leaning on the cane. He gave the pole one last salute. The flag bent slightly as if bowing back. Pride filled the silence between heartbeats, and the promise of tomorrow took its place. Weeks passed, and autumn found its footing. Leaves rusted into gold and crimson shades. Morning air grew thin, cool, and sweet. The flag outside swayed with practiced grace. Every sunrise carried a whisper of gratitude. Lawson's bench became part of the view. Students waved as they passed each day. Some stopped to chat, to ask, to learn. He always answered with quiet patience. "Just keep her flying right," he'd say. One morning he didn't come to work. The halls felt heavier, slower to wake. Collins called, then paused mid-dial. Something in the air already knew. Respect announced itself without sound. At noon, the bell rang longer than usual. Students filed out in rows of reverence. The flag rose halfway, then stopped midway. Emma read from a folded note in hand. Lawson's name carried through the wind. That evening, the plaque was unveiled. In honor of E.C.T. Jack Lawson, U.S. Marine Corps, who never let the flag fall. The words glimmered under amber light. A town's gratitude cast in metal and faith. Jake ran his fingers along the carved letters. "I think he'd say it's not about me," he murmured. Harris nodded, eyes damp and distant. "No," he said, "but it's because of him." The flag caught the last light like a memory. Emma wrote her final article that night. She titled it "The Promise Kept." It spoke of duty, forgiveness, and grace, of a man who taught honor without words, and of a nation still worth remembering. The next dawn rose quiet and sure. A new student stood at the base of the pole. She straightened her jacket and saluted, hands steady, eyes bright with purpose. The tradition lived, faithful and strong. The camera panned to the Kansas sky. Blue stretched wide over fields of gold. The flag waved high, unbroken, eternal, its sound mixed with the hum of morning. And somewhere Lawson smiled from peace. He never fought for fame. He fought for faith, for country, for brothers he'd never forget. And even in peace, he kept serving one dawn at a time. Have you or someone you love ever had to prove people wrong because of prejudice? Tell us your story in the comments below.